Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. We have reached to the Ayat and verse number 26 of chapter Al-Baqarah, chapter which is called Al-Baqarah means cow, the cow. 26 number verse is saying, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Inna Allah la yastahi an yazriba masalan ma ba'uzatan fama fawqaha. فأما الذين آمنوا فيعلمون أنه الحق من ربهم وأما الذين كفروا فيقولون ماذا أراد الله بهذا مثلا يضل به كثيرا ويهدي به كثيرا وما يضل به إلا الفاسقين. In this verse, Allah is saying that Allah is not shy, or He's not timid, or we can say another word for that, that Allah is not ashamed to give an example of a gnat or mosquito. Of course, this is what the traditional interpreter have said in their interpretation, and that bauza means a gnat or a mosquito. So Allah is not shy or not ashamed to give an example or similitude about a mosquito in his talks and when he gives a statement or in proses that he makes. And the first question here comes that what is the relation and what is the rationale that Allah is talking about this mosquito, or about example, giving example here, that he is not ashamed of giving such an example or such an similitude. The connection is that the rationale is that since Allah had talked in some verses before this verse about a challenge, that he is challenging people to bring some prose, some statements, some ayat, some verses, some chapter like Quran. And he says here that when Allah talks and Allah gives verses, He is not ashamed to even talk about these little creatures, these creatures which are not part of the talks of common people. And the people, when they talk imported things, they don't talk about things which they have not any, they are priceless, they are not mentionable, they are not at a state that somebody can name them or bring it in their talking and in their discussion. But Allah is saying that even if Allah talks and He brings such a very small creature and unimportant creature in His talks, a creature which is not mentionable, and it is so little and so down, even that there is no different in His verses, and His verses will be unique and unmatchable and uncreatable by others. So this is big think that Allah is saying that. We know that if some talks and some statement or some dialogue is containing some words which are mean, which are less important, which are very down in common sense, they are not brought in the bigger talks and the talks which are important. But Allah is saying that no, for me it does not matter. Even if He wants, He can bring so little things and mention them in His statements and His narrations, and it will not make His narrations less worthy or less in importance. It is not. His narrations and statement will be on the state high level and high state. So Allah is saying that in Allah, indeed, unquestionably, this is the reality that in Allah la yastahi. He is not ashamed. He is not feeling shy, or he is not timid. To do what? An yazriba masala, to strike a similitude, to give as an example, to put something as an example. Masalam ma ba'uzatan, masalam ma, whatever the example, whatever the similitude he wants, he can show it, he can strike it, he can give it. And for example, ba'uzatan, maybe that is a ba'uza. In traditional interpretation, they have meant by this word as a mosquito or gnat. But in some new researchers and the researcher have reached as they try to take the real meaning of lisan in Arabi and Mubin, means the real Arabic language, because the Quran has said that it is sent down in the real language of Arabic. And the real language of Arabic is that every word should return to its base and what is started from, and it should go back to fa and lam. And that is that is of jargon, or that is some expression of the Arabic language and Arab culture. We are not going to discuss it more than this here, but I say that traditionally it is meant like that, but when new researchers have researched it and saw it in the real Arabic language, lisan in Arabian, they meant it. Ba'uzatan means part of something. Ba'az, they have taken it from Ba'az, and Ba'az means part of something. Means not a complete thing even. It is so small, it is so little, it is so mean that cannot be said that this is complete. A thing. It is not a thing. It is not a complete thing. So Allah can talk about something which is not even can be called a complete thing. It is a ba'az and ba'uza, and is it just partially a thing that is partially a thing. So Allah is not ashamed. So and even fama fawqa, and then go up and up and up. Allah can give example of anything He means, and be at that state which is so little, and then become higher and higher, and then above that, up to what extent it can. So what happens when Allah talks like this and gives an example like this? So Allah here gives an analysis the situation first, and then He comments on that. He says that فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. When Allah talks like this and gives the example like this, those who believe in God, فَيَعْلَمُونَ, they know that this is example given by Allah, and what is given by Allah and what is said by Allah, what is stated by Allah, of course, that is true. That is a reality. That is a fact. Innahul haq. That is a reality. That's a fact. And that is min rabbihim. And that comes from their Lord, their provider. And so they accept it without any hesitation. وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ كَافَرُوا. But those who are unbeliever, they have a defiant manner, and they are not accepting easily, and they are not believing. What they think about this kind of talking when Allah gives the example of so mean things. فَيَقُولُونَ, so they will say, مَاذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ بِهَذَا مَثَلًا. What Allah does want from this kind of similitude and this kind of examples. These kind of example can make so many astray. And يُذِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا. يُذِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا means they are not comprehensible, they are not understandable, they are not something that is so mean that people are not thinking about this kind of example, and they are not accustomed with such an examples and such a talk. So يُذِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا, so they stand still, they are like a man who is not knowing what to do. He's not able to know, and he's in a situation that he is wondering what to do. That is the one who is called that he is Zal, means. So they say, these unbelievers say, with this kind of example, Allah will make so many astray. People will be astonished and not knowing, and they are in a wondering condition. And also they say Vayadi Bhi Kasira, so many go astray, but again there are so many that they are guided with this kind of example, because they think that this is from Lord, and whatever comes from Lord, it is important, it is good, and of course it has some meaning, and it relates to some reality and fact. So here after their saying, Allah is commenting on their thinking. Of course, Yakul means it doesn't have one meaning of uttering and saying. When it is said Yakul, Kala Yakul, it can mean that thinking. If somebody thinks, also you can say he's saying. So Allah is commenting on their saying or their vision and their this kind of thinking. وَمَا يُذِلُّ بِهِ إِلَّا الْفَاسِقِينَ. Be sure that Allah is not making astray unless those who are ungodly, those who are defiant, those who are unobedient. Only those go astray with this kind of example. But those who are believers and they believe in Allah, they will not be going astray, and they will be guided. And here it ends this verse, and inshallah next verse we will do in the next session. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah bless you all.